This episode is made possible by Partizan. Philippine Airlines, the flag carrier of the Philippines and one of the biggest companies in the country. Don't be deceived. From the perspective of an outside observer, Philippine Airlines seems like a stable, efficiently run company that takes care of its employees whilst providing exceptional customer experience and under the banner of an iconic brand. Basically, having the appearance of everything other business owners would envy and strive to become. Well, not quite, because in reality, Philippine Airlines has had one hell of a turbulent past. It has once been under the control of a dictator and then run by corrupt officials, and the airline was also at the brink of collapse during the Asian financial crisis. And just like other airlines, is easily affected by global events. Competition is fierce from Cebu Pacific and AirAsia, and it has battered its revenue streams to the point where it is no longer even considered as the largest airline in the country. And Philippine Airlines, or PAL for short, does still claim to be the first and oldest airline in Asia under its original name. But let me just clear this up. This does not mean that it is the first and oldest airline in Asia. In fact, it's not even the first and oldest airline in Southeast Asia. The first airline in Southeast Asia is the KNILM, or simply known as the Royal Dutch East Indies Airways. This airline is the precursor of the present-day Garuda Indonesia, the flag carrier of Indonesia. And that's why it feels a bit desperate for Philippine Airlines to claim that it's the first and oldest under its original name, which, once again, is not to be confused with the actual first and oldest airline in Southeast Asia, which is the Royal Dutch East Indies Airways. Felt like I had to clear this up because regularly claiming this seems a bit deceiving to the regular, uninformed individual, which was me before I studied this brand. But anyway, let's dive into the rise and fall of Philippine Airlines. PAL's story starts with another company, the Philippine Aerial Taxi Company, or PATCO for short. This was established as a way to transport mail, cargo, and occasionally some passengers in Luzon. PATCO's first round-trip flight was between Manila and Iloilo on March of 1931 due to the demand of passenger flights. And a fun fact, while PATCO was finalizing plans to fly to the Visayas, the Iloilo-based Lopez family launched the Iloilo Negros Air Express Company, or INAEC for short. INAEC grew quickly. In fact, they were already doing flights to Davao and Cagayan de Oro, while PATCO was still only operating flights to and from Baguio, Masbate, and Paracale. And they dealt another blow to PATCO when they invested in two Sikorsky S-43 twin-engine amphibians, which at that time was considered as the best one available in the country. This was a devastating blow to PATCO, which they were never able to recover from, and so in 1939, the company folded. But then, one of the PATCO co-founders, Andres Soriano, wanted to launch another airline. And so in early 1941, Andres Soriano founded the Philippine Airways, which he later then changed to Philippine Airlines or PAL in March 1941. Right off the bat, Philippine Airlines launched trips from the Nielsen base in Makati to Baguio. This was PAL's inaugural flight and signaled PAL's ambition to compete with the Lopez-owned INAEC. PAL then expanded its route system to several other provinces in the Philippines. And perhaps the final blow that caused Philippine Airlines to beat INAEC was when the Philippine government financially backed PAL, resulting in the nationalization of the airline. But why did the government do this? Well, maybe it has something to do with Andres Soriano. A little background about Andres Soriano: he's a wealthy Spaniard who had previously served as a consul in Manila for the Spanish dictator Francisco Franco. So yeah, Soriano was extremely well connected, which is probably how, along with the success of PAL, he was able to find ways for them to back his company. I mean, he did control a large part of the San Miguel breweries and several other big corporations in the Philippines. So I can see why this guy was pretty confident. And not only that, he was even able to bring in General Douglas MacArthur into the mix, who at that time was in charge of the United States Armed Forces in the Philippines. Take note that this Soriano was about to launch his new airline in 1941, just right before World War II would hit Philippine shores. Now that PAL had government funding, PAL acquired PATCO's franchise in mid-1941. And in a move to further expand operations, Philippine Airlines ordered new aircraft to serve more domestic routes and even one between Manila and Hong Kong. They were bound for delivery on December 1941, but then, well, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in December 7, 1941, and then attacked the Philippines a day later. For obvious reasons, World War II put all operations on hold. But during the war, a couple of PAL's planes were actually used to evacuate American fighter pilots to Australia. One was shot down and one was shot on the ground in an air raid. When the war was over, Philippine Airlines resumed operations servicing 15 domestic routes with a fleet of 5 Douglas DC-3s. If you guys are World War II fanboys like myself, remember the planes that dropped off the paratroopers in Band of Brothers? Those are Douglas C-47 Skytrains. And those planes were basically modified versions of the Douglas DC-3s, so if you look closely, you will notice that they kinda look similar. But anyway, in July of 1946, Philippine Airlines became the first Asian airline to cross the Pacific when it was tasked to ferry 40 American servicemen to Oakland, California. It would take 41 hours and 4 stops, and this would kickstart a regular route between Manila and San Francisco. Philippine Airlines was then designated as the flag carrier of the Philippines, and it would only get better for PAL because after the war, the Philippine economy started rebounding, further fueling the explosive rise of Philippine Airlines. It went so well that PAL was able to buy out 2 of its largest competitors, the Far Eastern Air Transport and Commercial Airlines. At this point, PAL was now the only operating airline in the Philippines, and between 1946 and 1955, PAL served 36 domestic airports with a fleet of 35 planes. Now that PAL was the flag carrier, and since it was the country's only airline, the company faced an unexpected challenge. It needed to service routes all over the country, even the unprofitable ones. And even though the economy was doing well, the average Filipino still could not afford air travel. And so for many of its routes, it was operating at a loss. In the 1960s, during the rise of dictator Ferdinand Marcos, Philippine Airlines wasn't spared. Ferdinand Marcos and his wife, then First Lady Imelda Marcos, had a hand in every major corporation in the Philippines, PAL included. Imelda Marcos, known for her lavish lifestyle and excessive spending, allegedly accrued a debt to PAL of nearly $6 million. Since the First Lady traveled the world often, she flaunted her on-demand access of Philippine Airlines. Her own plane was equipped with beds, built-in showers, gold bathroom fixtures, and allegedly, occasionally another plane would follow her along just to carry her personal luggage. Take note that I have been saying allegedly because they may just be making all this up, but then considering Imelda Marcos' reputation, they may actually be true. Going back, Benny Toda, who was running PAL at that time, offered to cut Imelda's $6 million debt as long as she would pay it. Instead, Imelda demanded that Toda transfer his interests in the airline to the government, which meant that the Marcoses would have control over it. Toda had no choice really, and so he handed over his shares to the government, and so now Philippine Airlines was under Marcos' control. Ferdinand Marcos would eventually run a system where industries were monopolized. This covered the airline industry too, with what is known as the One Airline Policy, and consequently, PAL absorbed Air Manila and Filipinas Orient Airways. Eventually, the Marcos dictatorship came to an end when the EDSA revolution toppled the regime and paved the way for the presidential term of Corazon Aquino. And a lot of cleaning up was required to straighten things out behind the biggest companies in the Philippines. In the case of Philippine Airlines, in 1988, President Cory Aquino abolished Marcos' One Airline Policy, and it was safe to say that the state of Philippine Airlines was dire. The company was riddled with corruption and ineffective management. For one, employees were severely underpaid, which led to the defections to other competing companies, which were willing to pay up to 4 times as much as PAL. PAL was an embarrassment to the international aviation industry with its lackluster maintenance capabilities, its own network of runways which were begging to be repaired, and a whole lineup of executives who were quite obviously profiting really well from Philippine Airlines. And so plans were rolled out to sell the government's share of Philippine Airlines so that it would be privatized. Dante Santos was brought in to make PAL profitable before its eventual sale. And during Santos' time at PAL, a total of 22 top executives were charged with negligence, fraud, and mismanagement. They made a lot of money from PAL, doing corrupt operation practices such as kickbacks from travel agents, overstating purchases, and theft of parts. Many of these executives were eventually let go. And the corruption didn't stop there. You start to realize that it really is deeply rooted within PAL. Because here's another instance. So since they were finding the best way to be privatized, they consulted the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank on what the best course of action is that they can take. Both recommended that foreign investors would be necessary in order to retire PAL's $650 million in foreign debt and eventually turn the airline around. Contrary to this advice, the government decided to sell PAL to the highest bidder, which is a company called PR Holdings via AB Capital. This move by the government is a bit fishy, and once you get to know who's running AB Capital, you start to get a hint of why they chose this rather than go with what the Asian Development Bank and what the World Bank advised. Apparently, the Soriano and Coangco families have significant interests in AB Capital. The Sorianos, of course, are the ones who founded Philippine Airlines in 1941, and the Coangcos are related to former President Corazon Aquino. So yeah, very powerful people influenced this decision for sure. Anyway, in 1992, Philippine Airlines was once again privatized. The government sold its 67% share in the airline to a holding company called PR Holdings. The following year, in 1993, to start the new era on a high note, Philippine Airlines acquired its first Boeing 747, and rightfully, its first passenger was then-President Fidel V. Ramos. In 1996, Jose Antonio Garcia was tasked to lead Philippine Airlines into profitability. So what exactly was wrong with Philippine Airlines? Well, first off, PAL had one of the smallest and oldest fleet of planes, which meant that the number of flights they could operate were limited. And since their planes were old, they couldn't select long-distance routes. Plus, older planes required more stopovers, and more stopovers meant that PAL needed to pay fees for each stop at each airport, which cut into their profit margins. Inefficiencies were also rampant. Maintenance became pricier because PAL's planes had different engines, so they had to use different parts for each engine, and these costs added up. There was also a lot of theft happening within PAL. In 1996, they discovered that PAL was losing around 750 million pesos each year from the theft of plane parts and other supplies. And this doesn't even include theft happening in provincial stations. There was once a report where security discovered a fuel line running off company grounds. It also didn't help that between the owners of PAL, two sides hated each other, since the government owned a part of PAL even after they sold their shares, and the others being owned by PR Holdings, there was a clear divide between the two sides. Then President Fidel V. Ramos hated Lucio Tan, a Marcos crony. Lucio Tan was one of the leading figures of PR Holdings. And so what the government did was to force PAL to fly some commercially unprofitable routes, something that its competitors weren't necessarily required to do. And lastly, competition was growing. Philippine Airlines no longer had the advantage of being the only airline available. And take note that Cebu Pacific started operations in 1996, so Philippine Airlines started working on improving itself. In 1995, some big changes were made within Philippine Airlines, both technical and human-related. First, leadership. Lucio Tan, the majority shareholder of PR Holdings, became the new chairman and CEO of Philippine Airlines. This ended government involvement in PAL, which was a significant step towards straightening things out within the company. PAL then worked on their staff. 14,000 employees began training with the goal of improving efficiency. The company also invested in new computer systems that made it easier to make reservations between travel agencies and the company. And most importantly, the company prioritized updating its aging fleet with a huge order of new planes. In December 1995, with a $1 billion finance loan from a group of Asian banks, Philippine Airlines placed an order of 36 new planes. With this order, Philippine Airlines would have the most modern and youngest fleet in Asia, and they expected to be one of Asia's best airlines within 3 years. Now that improvements were in motion, the airline was expecting to be profitable by the year 2000. And for the first time ever, these ambitious promises were finally starting to seem like they might actually happen. In fact, PAL was so confident they even rebranded itself as Asia's Sunniest Airlines along with a huge advertising campaign. But well, that's until the Asian financial crisis happened. Philippine Airlines was about halfway through of its refleeting program when the full impact of the 1997 Asian financial crisis was felt by the airline industry. Let's just say that PAL was in the worst possible position to be in when the crisis hit. The acquisition of too many aircraft along with a handful of unprofitable routes really hit PAL hard. The company had lost $338 million over the last 4 years and has suspended payments on its $2.1 billion in debts. And so as a result, PAL had to dismantle its Mactan Cebu International Airport hub and it was forced to implement massive layoffs. To make matters worse, the employee-led union got some momentum, and this eventually led to Philippine Airlines shutting down operations on September 23, 1998. Yes, you heard it right. At one point, even though it was only for 14 days, Philippine Airlines shut down all operations. So now, why did employees go on strike? Well, the shutdown happened after weeks of negotiating between trade union leaders and PAL chairman Lucio Tan. The union argued that Tan has been milking out the most profitable sections of Philippine Airlines by contracting out services like catering and training to Tan's own companies. And they claim that Tan has earned at least over 25 billion pesos since he took over PAL 5 years prior. They blamed bad management as the key reason why PAL is on its knees during the Asian financial crisis. Tan's offer was to give each employee 60,000 shares of PAL, 3 union officials to be elected to the board, and in return, the union was to lose its rights under the collective bargaining agreement for the next 10 years. Which means that management could do massive layoffs and changes to pay and conditions without restrictions. Workers would basically lose their right to go on strike. Union leaders couldn't agree to this, and so 5,000 workers went on strike, effectively causing PAL to shut down. As the shutdown became more and more apparent, Cebu Pacific Air and Air Philippines promised to cater to the demand, but neither of these two were at capacity and capability that PAL was in. During the 14-day shutdown, Cathay Pacific temporarily took over PAL's domestic and international operations. Cathay Pacific was actually very much interested in acquiring 40% of Philippine Airlines, but they just couldn't come to an agreement. The 14-day shutdown ended when top management and employees were able to come to an agreement. This was reportedly facilitated by then-President Joseph Estrada. Now that PAL was back, it now had to think of a way to get itself out of this financial mess. Although the company continued to search for a strategic partner, it ended up going for a standalone rehabilitation program where it required a $200 million infusion from investors. Luckily for PAL, an unexpected boom in air travel happened, and by 2000, Philippine Airlines came back to profitability as it made around 44 million pesos in its first year of recovery, breaking its 6-year streak of heavy losses. By 2006, it was named as the Airline Turnaround of the Year. In 2008, Philippine Airlines launched PAL Express. PAL Express is Philippine Airlines' budget airline brand. As PAL was starting to feel the pressure from Cebu Pacific, a competing airline that was carving out significant market share with its lower price fares, PAL Express was going to be Philippine Airlines brand that will cater to flying intra-regional routes in the Visayas and Mindanao, as well as routes that are between smaller airports and island provinces that were not able to accommodate PAL's regular-sized jets. PAL Express was also going to be offering lower fares for these flights in order to compete with Cebu Pacific. Eventually, in 2010, they rebranded PAL Express into Airfill Express. You may be able to recall a time when we would see Airfill Express orange painted planes on the runway. They changed their minds again 3 years later and rebrand it back to PAL Express. So why introduce a separate brand in PAL Express? Initially, under Airfill Express, management was trying to make sure that the low-cost positioning of Airfill Express does not affect the brand of Philippine Airlines, which is positioned as a premium airline option. Airfill Express was rebranded to PAL Express because management, which was under San Miguel Corporation during their short stint as 49% owners of Philippine Airlines, thought that it would be nice if people started associating the high-level experience of flying Philippine Airlines to carry over to what they can expect when they fly PAL Express. And that's kind of what happened. PAL Express had a bit of an edge because people started expecting the service and experience you'd get from PAL, whilst only paying for lower fares. Problem was, it negatively affected the brand of Philippine Airlines, because now, people can no longer distinguish what the difference is between PAL and PAL Express. Like, what's the point of even going for PAL when you can go for PAL Express? And so they hit a bit of an identity crisis here, because now, it's hardly impossible to distinguish one brand from the other, giving PAL and PAL Express a bit of a confusing brand positioning. But anyway, when the 2008 economic crisis hit, PAL was once again hit hard, and they're not alone, since in 2009, around 20 airlines went bankrupt. But the economic crisis is only one of the reasons why PAL was hit hard. Oil prices were at a record high, and PAL was also downgraded to Category 2, which prevented PAL from using brand new long-range aircraft or increasing flights to the US. Plus, it was starting to feel the heat from local rival Cebu Pacific. In 2013, even though the industry was suffering, Cebu Pacific managed to post a 500 million peso profit. It was the only airline that was able to record a profit in 2013. Cebu Pacific also increased its market share from 46% to 50%, thus eclipsing the dominance of Philippine Airlines. In that same year, Cebu Pacific acquired Tiger Air Philippines, eating up its 5% market share. And it doesn't really help that AirAsia Philippines entered the picture in 2011. In such a short period, AirAsia now has 11% of the domestic market. Today, Philippine Airlines is owned by the LT Group, majority owned by Lucio Tan. And after a brief stint of being under San Miguel Corporation from 2012 to 2014, where San Miguel acquired 49% of PAL for $500 million, a big chunk of PAL is now back in the hands of Lucio Tan's companies. By the end of 2019, Philippine Airlines has over 36% of the domestic market. And although it may not lead domestically, it remains as the leader internationally with over 56%, down from 59% in 2018. Philippine Airlines is still a big player in the airline industry, but just think about how many times it had advantages over competing airlines with its special privileges from the government. Yet here it is, dethroned by Cebu Pacific in the domestic market. It truly is a fall from grace. Like I said, Philippine Airlines has had a turbulent past, and even during the times when it seemed like things had nowhere to go but up, market conditions or other factors that are beyond their control just seem to find a way to drag PAL back down. And now that a global pandemic has crippled the travel industry, it'll be interesting to know how it navigates its way back to profitability and whether it can live long enough to say mabuhay. If you like this video, be sure to check out our other videos. They're about the origin stories of brands. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also listen to this episode on our podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about Brand Origins. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, so you could say hi to us there as well. This episode is made possible by Partizan. Visit partizanstudios.com.